All right, you good to go?
Yes, I'm good.
Welcome back to the Open Up podcast, everyone. It's episode 72 with speaker and author Tinashe La. Thank you for doing this, buddy.
Thank you, buddy. Now I love the word buddy because every time I hear you saying buddy, 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 and I'm like, this is so cool. Because at work as well, I have like a new team leader, and he's always saying to me, buddy, buddy, and it's so weird, like because I've never heard of it before. You always think that buddy is guy to guy kind of thing.
Yeah,
So he's always saying buddy, and I hear you saying buddy, buddy, and I'm like, this is so cool. So probably my new word nowadays is buddy.
nice. That's literally come from one of my favorite people ever. She works at the gym and she's like the receptionist admin. And so every time anyone comes in, she's like, hey, buddy, to anyone. And there's
Oh,
like 3,000 plus people that use that gym. So
wow.
yeah, she makes a big difference. I've just stolen that from her, really.
That is cool.
Dive straight in with a deep ish question. You probably heard it before. Could you
hmm
describe the way you view yourself as a woman and or human?
Oh, great. I view myself as a very happy person. Happy, I probably not happy. I wouldn't use the word happy actually. I would actually use the word as a joyful person.
Yes.
Yes, because happy, you can be happy today and then you can be happy, you cannot be happy tomorrow. But I think from the time I literally wake up every single day in the morning, I am just full of like it's joy, like because I am so grateful to just be alive.
Yeah.
So as soon as I wake up, I am so excited to just be awake, and I'm so excited to just be see what the day has to offer. So I would describe myself as a joyful, very confident and bold woman.
I love that. I love that because that's a stark contrast to I guess, the story you're going to tell pretty soon.
Absolutely, yes. Very confident in myself, and I'm very bold in whatever I believe in. I'm just true to who I am. And yes, I believe as a woman as well, I'm a very beautiful woman.
You should. You deserve to feel that way.
Yes, I think it's something that women, wouldn't think of saying, that, oh, I don't know who I am, but I truly know who I am as a woman.
Okay, that's amazing. Is that is that something that's in in my culture back home? So like the Polynesian island culture, if if you start talking about yourself that way within that culture, you sort of have that stamped out. Was that the same within your culture back home?
I never, it's weird because growing up, I never thought of these things about myself. I never was a confident person. I would never ever say that I am beautiful, never. Because when I was growing up, I don't know, because now probably because I'm covering my ears, but growing up, I used to be teased that I've got big ears. Like that was actually my nickname in Shona. They say ears are called Nzeve. So people used to call me Wemajeve because they used to say I had, big ears. So that's all I grew up thinking. I never had any self-confidence. You just think, oh, I've got big ears, I've got a big nose, and that's all you think, that's your identity. So I was never like this ever, and I was very quiet child, very quiet. You would never hear me speaking, besides when I'm singing. But so it's a character. It's the new, obviously, new me, knowing who I am now. So I know that I'm a beautiful woman. My ears, no big deal. My nose, that's a trademark of my family. Everyone has got a big nose. It's no big deal. But when people stamp so certain things out of you, you think that's your identity,
Yeah.
but it's actually not. So no, growing up, I never used to hear someone saying, I'm beautiful. Other people would tell other people they are beautiful. But for me, My husband, I can say I've heard him a few times say, "Wow, you look beautiful," because I say it before he even says it.
That is so cool.
Yes, as soon as I dress up, I wake up, I look at myself in the mirror. Rarely you find me with makeup. I look at myself, I'm like, God, wow, I'm beautiful.
Yes. How much better would people's lives be if they had that sort of mentality, mindset, or love for themselves?
Oh my goodness. That's one thing that I really, really hope that people would start looking at themselves like that and not waiting for someone else to tell you. Because even at work, um, people who know me, they can tell you I can spend 365 days of the year and not change an outfit. So people are like, what does your husband say every morning when he sees you? Like, does he say you're beautiful because every day you're wearing something and all that? And I'm like, he actually doesn't see me in the morning because he's already gone out for work. But I wear it, I look at myself, and I tell myself I'm not waiting for someone else to tell me either don't wear this or this doesn't look good on you. I look at it and I'm like, this is what I want. This is what suits my body type. I'm happy. I'm beautiful. Done.
That is so epic. I love it. Uh, Seeing as you touched on like people telling you that you had big ears, we might as well just dive straight into your story, which I guess starts in childhood. You comfortable walking us through that?
Yes. As a child, basically, I was a quiet child. I think being a quiet child, now when I look at myself now, obviously I wasn't a quiet child because you don't become just quiet and then so
Yeah.
out there and speak so much. But the circumstances, growing up as a child, you see so many things in your surroundings, in your community, in your own family as well. So these things, I think as a child, they made me confused because I went to like very good schools, like what they call Group A schools. And I went to schools that were mixed racially. So like primary school, my first 2 years, primary one and primary two, I was in the neighborhood school. And then when I went to primary three, I moved schools and it was a mixed school. So here I am, you're coming from a black school and then you're going to a school mixed with white people, mixed with Indians, mixed with every colors and all certain different types of people. You see different kind of things. You see how, different parents treat their children. You see how, because everyone is different, they grow up from different families, you start seeing different things. And as a child, it started making me question certain things even when I was in year three, because there was things I could look at other people doing and I'm like, how come we don't do this kind of things?
Yeah.
And then I moved schools when I went to year four, and it was still a mixed school, but this was even bigger. And, I was into all different kinds of sports. I just wanted to mix with everyone. And, I was so open to everything. I wanted to try everything. Hockey, I played hockey. I did long jump. I was, running because there was so much to learn, and you're mixing with different people. And the more I mixed with different people, the more I questioned either how we were at home and the things we did, particularly, like church, for example. We had to wear like white clothes. We were not allowed to have our hair done, so we had to shave our head.
Wow.
Yes, and we were not allowed to pierce our ears or wear jewelry, whether rings or people never used to wear. And then because I never questioned or asked why we had to do these things, and then I go to school, people in primary school, year three, year four, they've got their hair done, they've got braids, they've got long hair, they've got earrings. and they wear pants, and I was not allowed to wear pants. I always had to wear, long skirts or long dresses and cover up. And, you're questioning yourself. You're like, but these people, even though they do these things, they are not bad people. They are actually great people. So why do we do this? And then even some reasons that you hear, it doesn't really add up.
Yeah.
So instead of me voicing those things out or asking, I became so quiet and reserved that I was probably confused,
Yeah.
a confused child, that you're like, okay, what is this? And
So as a kid, having to shave your head, is that part of the norm where you're from? Because I can imagine here, like if a girl had her head shaved, she'd probably get made fun of in primary school, just because they would pick on anything they can. Was that the case
yes.
for you?
Yes, so it wasn't necessarily, the church, but it was also like, I think most schools back home in Zimbabwe anyway, like it depends with what school you're going to. So some schools, they would have all whether it be primary or high school, they would tell all the kids, girls and boys, to have short hair. It was just, it's very popular.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything that you'd be picked up on because everyone had short hair. But the schools that I went to, people were doing hair because they were mixed, so it wasn't like everyone has to shave hair. So that was weird for me that, here other people have got hair, but why am I not allowed? And that played a big role as well for me, because already people were teasing me of my ears and the way I looked. So having short hair actually exaggerated probably how I
Yeah.
looked like. So that even brought my confidence more. And my dad is a twin. So my dad's twin, the girl, she's also the same age as me. And for her, I tell myself that I'm beautiful. But when I look at this girl, for me, she's breathtaking. Some people, they are just good looking. That's what she is like. So being compared to her all the time, because we are like neighbors as well. We grew up together, everything together. Being compared to her didn't help. Not that she compared herself to me, but other people used to say, oh, she's gorgeous, she's this. And then you're like, what about me? But for me, it's more like, oh, the big ears one, and kind of thing. So that didn't help with my confidence as growing up. So that really played a major role, because I would look at other people and think they are beautiful, but I'm not. So I never had confidence basically in myself.
So
And
when you said that you were pretty outgoing and you're trying all these different sort of sports at school, and then you come to this point where you have to start sort of repressing what it is that you're thinking, like questioning your faith and the stuff that you do within your family environment. Did that take away you having the confidence to try all those different sorts of things?
actually, it's funny that I've always loved singing since I probably I could sing. I've always loved singing. So at school, in primary school, I was doing all these. We used to have like probably every other Saturday we had like competitions, singing competitions, dancing competitions. So I would actually practice the dancing and the singing because I was so good at it, and I would practice with people at school, and we would wear skin tights and everything. But because I was not allowed to wear those things, at home, and the probably the faith that I was practicing then. So I would wear the tights. People would give me the tights at school, and I would practice and dance and do all these things. And then when it comes to the Saturday where the competition is being held, I always never turned up because I was like, I'm scared to ask, like, can you please buy me pants? Like, they're like, we don't wear pants. Why do you want that? So I had like probably different personality. I have a personality when I'm at school and I'm adventurous and I'm doing all these things. And then when I get home, I'm just that reserved girl who is just trying to please the family and be the nice girl. But within me, there is this,
Yeah.
adventurous girl that wants to adventure. But then she's so scared. So fear was, played a major role in me growing up. I was so scared to even say my hair, to question things. I was so afraid that I would be beaten, or something would be said, So I was just a fearful girl.
Well, okay. You want to keep walking us through your story from there?
Yeah. So, and then with relationships, so I am growing up, I have no confidence in myself. I am always afraid to speak out. And relationship wise, I grew up in a very loving like home, like it was the perfect home. You can, as a child, you grow up, it's perfect. Mom and dad are happy. They all work, they provide, we go out and all these things. It was perfect. I never saw much, even my mom before, if she wants to make something new, she would ask my dad, can I make soup with spare ribs? Those kind of things that, she would ask him if he's also liking what she's going to make. I could see the love. I would see them dancing on the weekend because they work during the week. You'll find them putting, the volume on, dancing in the sitting room by themselves. I saw love, but at the same time, as you're growing up in a community like the African communities, pretty much everyone is family, cousins, and all that. You begin to also see different things. I saw and heard people being beaten, people shouting at each other, even in the neighborhood, in the street, you would hear these things. But one thing I never heard or saw of was a woman leaving those relationships or marriages. Things would happen, but people stayed.
Yeah.
So watching this, obviously it's learned behavior. That's what I've grown to know now. You see these things and you're like, okay, so even if something goes wrong in a relationship, you stay, you protect it, you cover everything that's happening.
Yeah.
So for me, I just saw a fighting in relationships and people still staying, and most people are still with those relationships. So for me it was like, okay, so it's part of relationships. And because maybe in the African culture, it's not, you don't talk much about boyfriends and girlfriends. It is something that is not brought up in relationship, that, oh, so and so is dating and they are going out and doing all these things. People talk more about being married. So you don't hear either communications about what is dating, what is a good guy, what is a good girl. If you see someone doing this is not a bad behavior. You do this, there is nothing like that. It's always no boyfriends, no girlfriends, study and, be who you are supposed to be. And people are more concerned about dowry. People are more concerned about marriage, but the process to get to paying that dowry to being married is the relationship. But that part, no one, most children never had their relationships hidden in the background. And then you just go to your aunties and then you show this man, I want to get married. And no one knows who you're dating because it's all pretty much hidden.
So, like, for the most part, that learned behavior is that, like, no matter what happens to you as a woman within a relationship, you remain loyal to that relationship.
Yes.
That's a pretty tough position to be in, especially as a kid seeing that.
Yes, no, it's tough. I actually most of even the now it's conferences and meetups that people have. When what I saw growing up, people would be told, I would listen to what the elder women are telling these aunties, telling the young girls or the women that you need to be strong, you need to protect your marriage, you need to it was all about toughening up, like be strong. People will talk, people will do this, but protect, your family, protect this. And you grow up with that I have to be strong. I have to protect what I have. I have to protect my husband, even regardless of whatever is going on, you just need to be tough. So for me, I had this, like, I'm tough.
So looking back now, obviously after all the work you've done, like you've written a book about your story, you've got to this point where you now don't need anyone else to confirm that you're beautiful because you like genuinely believe it yourself. Looking back now, do you have an understanding of why the culture is like that?
Ah, ah, even until now, because even now I still go to conferences and meetings where, people like when a girl is about to get married, we have the bridal showers, and it's all women just come together and then they give you advice based on what they know. And even until today, this very day, I hear things and I cringe. I'm like, you can't say things like this. This is not right. And because these people are also older people, I have to sometimes just humble myself and not say anything. But it's like that is way long time ago, when people were giving this advice. Now with the awareness and the education that is out there, people should be more open-minded. And before, people could say, the older generation could say they didn't know any better, that's what they knew. But for this our generation, and even those elder people who want to learn and change, they still, that room for them to be educated and made awareness of some certain things. So, I look at it and I'm like, probably they were not as educated and made aware of what is good, a good relationship. They just learned from what they saw from their grandparents and mothers and all that. So that's what they know. But for us now, I think there is more awareness and education on relationships, mental health, suicide, all these things. Previously, the older generation, they kept everything to themselves. But for us, I think we are a new breed.
Okay. So in terms of like an understanding of why that is the belief, is it because marriage is such a huge part of not only the culture but the faith as well? And so like if you step out of line in terms of keeping that marriage together and being loyal, even if you're going through abuse, that means you're going to be outcast or like not fit in anymore?
Yes, so like when I was growing up, and I will touch more on my relationship. So when I was growing up as a young girl, virginity, keeping your virginity was a big thing that I heard and saw people talking about. I used to hear that when you're a girl child and you're about to be married, you're on your first night, the aunties will bring like a white cloth and they will give it to you so they can see that the blood is there, that you were a virgin.
Right.
So, if there is no blood, it means already you had already, slept around, and you wouldn't get that much respect. So me hearing these things, I always thought obviously virginity was a big thing. I need to keep my virginity until, I'm married. And so with that kind of mindset, and then meeting this guy, who takes my virginity away. And because I was so concerned about my virginity, because the reason why even he started hitting me and abusing me, it came from him wanting me to sleep over, and I would refuse because I was like, I want to get married first before we sleep together, because virginity was a big thing for me. And then, he beat me the first time because I didn't want to stay over at his house. I was like, no, I'm going. And that was the first time he ever abused me. So, and then eventually I was like, oh, let me just give in, let me make him happy and the relationship will be good. And then I give in. And because he knew that this was a big thing for me, every now and then he would do a joke and be like, I met you, you were not even a virgin anyway. And he knew that when he says that, it would make me, so angry, because it was a big thing. So you see, you have these things like virginity, and then you have these things that, once you're married, you don't divorce, because I never heard of divorce, never, ever. I had relatives who had separated and divorced, obviously, but it wasn't something that was even spoken about. You would just see people like your cousins, they've got another mother and another dad, but it wasn't something, you were not told what happened or anything. It was just like they've got two moms and all that, but they never told, what the issue is or what happened. Everything is pretty much hidden. So you grow up, you don't even know why people are like that. So I pretty much think, yeah, it's more about the things you grow up knowing, and then you get into these situations, and then I was in there, and that's one thing why I stayed as well more in this relationship for a long time, because I was like, okay, now if I leave this guy, and then if I meet another guy, and then we get married, and then the aunties bring this cloth, and then I have no blood because I've already lost my virginity, so it means I'm not going to be respected by the family because they'll think I'm a slut because I was sleeping around before. So it's those kind of, things that you grow up, that learned behavior, and things that that are not really, it's
So
not really true.
there are things set in place within the culture that are designed to scare you pretty much out of
Yes.
losing virginity because you're going to lose that respect.
Yes, and like marriage as well, because of faith, well, yeah, in Zimbabwe, faith is a big thing. You have all these messages and preachings about marriage and not divorcing. So people are like, if I divorce, then God hates me or I'm going to be punished. You have all these kind of things you're taught, but God is love. That's what people forget. So if God is love, it doesn't matter which religion you're from. It's all about love. The main center, it's love. So where you're not being loved, is it that faith? Does it still hold, essence when there is no love, when you're being abused or you're being mistreated? That love has been taken away. So what do you do? And most people are just told, just pray, just stay in there, things will work out. But how can things work out when there's no help for it?
Okay, so seeing as you touched on that relationship, we might as well fast forward to that. And you you brought up the fact that when you did lose your virginity, he'd bring it up and like sort of throw it in your face and you know make barbs or jokes about it, knowing that it upset you or that it hurt you. Looking back now, do you have an understanding of why he felt the need to do that, or was he insecure about the relationship at all?
That is one thing that I actually never understood, because if he had met me when I wasn't a virgin, I would say, oh, those things that I used to hear. He would think maybe she was sleeping around before. So I don't know who many, maybe she slept around, but he met me when I was a virgin. So he was the first guy I was ever intimate with. So you think that he would be confident in himself that this is the first girl I took, the virginity away from. And during that time, I was not this confident. I never used to go around saying, I look so beautiful. I never used to say, look at what I'm wearing. I look nice. I love this. I was still that kind of girl who never thought she was beautiful. So, you would think he would be secure knowing that, oh, this is my girl. Like, she's not going anywhere because she loves me. And I never used to flirt. I know there are some people who are out there who flirt, but I was never that. I was so reserved, so quiet, that I used to think he would have been more confident, in the person that I was. And because he was the bubbly one, he was very outgoing, me, and then he would bring all these people over because he loved soccer. So he had all these people coming over to watch soccer. And me being the nice girl, I would cook meals for everyone. Everyone used to come and I would make, our staple food, sadza and veggies and stew every other weekend for people. And they come, they watch soccer, they drink. And I'm just there, cook, clean up, being the typical, girl, woman. And I thought you would have thought that he would have been like, wow, this is the kind of like, not perfect, but the kind of perfect woman I would wish for. But he was so insecure in himself. When I look back now, he was very insecure. That he felt the need, obviously, to control me, the need to, one thing he constantly accused me of was cheating. Oh my goodness. I was accused of cheating with every single guy who came into our home, which were his friends coming to watch soccer. But these people, because they used to call me, auntie, they even called me auntie, not that they even called me buddy or something. They, even though I was so young, but people called me auntie. They had this respect for me that I never even understood myself. So I was like, I don't understand why he feels the need to feel like I'm cheating with everyone when these people actually respect me. So his insecurities, I can't speak for him, but now when I look back, I realize, yeah, he was very insecure, and the need to control, and yes, that's what made him behave the way he did.
Yeah, I think it's hard for someone if you don't respect your partner yourself. It's going to be hard for you to accept the fact that your friends respect your partner, and so
Ah,
you're going to make up a story to, you know, you're going to tell yourself a story about why they do. And for him,
mm.
it's easier to go along with the story he made up about you cheating.
Yes, it was, yeah, that was one thing that I constantly never understood. And, for him, he loved to go clubbing and partying. And for me, because I was so reserved, I never liked drinking. I tried, he was like, try, try. I tried. And then I realized, look, it's not for me. Let's just not even go there. And I would tell him, you go out, you go clubbing, and he would go. And I never questioned, where were you, what were you doing, why did you come this time? Because for me, I was just like, that's him, let him do what he loves to do. And I expected the same thing for me, but for me it was always, where are you, why didn't you answer your phone? I called you 3 times, I sent you 3 messages, and it's like, but for you, I give you the freedom to be who you are. But for me, I was never given that freedom to be who I am.
Were you comfortable? Like you said, you were a reserved, quiet person. Were you ever comfortable saying anything to him about that sort of constraint you were under or restraint he had on you?
No, because I used to talk back. So if he says, why, you're cheating on this person, because I knew I wasn't cheating, so I would stand up and be like, no, I'm not cheating. This is what happened. He asked for a vacuum cleaner. An example, one of his friends came and asked him because he was working up north. So one of his friends came and asked me for a vacuum cleaner. So I gave this guy the vacuum cleaner, no big deal. And, so I gave this guy the vacuum cleaner, and then this guy, so I told him, oh, your friend came, asked for a vacuum cleaner, no big deal. And then he came back for the week that he was home, and then he went back. The friend brought back the vacuum cleaner when he had gone back. So for him, he was like, something is going on, because why did this guy bring back the vacuum cleaner when I'm not there? And it's those things that I would be like, are you, why? It's nothing. He just brought it because he's finished. It's not because you're not there and he wanted to come. So I would, answer back and say, it doesn't make sense. And that would make him more angry. Like, I know what I'm talking about. Are you saying I'm stupid? And then he would start using these words. And I'm like, I didn't even say you are stupid. So it just stemmed from something so small. And then it would be, it would become bigger. And another thing, because I came on an international student visa. And then after a year, I lost my visa. And then when I lost my visa, I was given 28 days to leave the country. So when it happened, I was in shock, in absolute shock. So I told him, because he was there when I got the phone call, and then he said to me, oh, we've been together for a year. This is the conditions for a spouse visa. Let's just go to the immigration and try and apply for a spouse visa and see what happens. So that day I got the phone call, we went together to the immigration. So it wasn't like, for me, I am the one who said, can I be on your spouse visa? For me, I was saying, okay, I'll try and see what I can do and convince the immigration that it wasn't my fault, that I deserve to stay here. It never came up of the spouse visa, but he's the one who brought up. He's like, I'm a citizen here. Let's go and try and apply for the visa. And we went and we applied for the spouse visa. And he was so happy, like, doing this. There was nothing hidden. I could just see someone who loves me. Well, that's what I thought, someone who loves me and wants me to stay. And he obviously doesn't want me to go back to Zimbabwe. So we applied and everything was okay. He was happy with it. So then after getting the visa, to always be accused of being a drama queen, that I used him for a visa. It did not make sense, because for me, I was like, you freely offered for me to be on a spouse visa based on your citizenship. How then am I now a drama queen who is using you for a visa? So every time I now answered back when he accuses me of anything, it was like, Sorry, it was like, she's a drama queen. She's just doing this because she wants to be, stay here, which never made sense.
Yep. So it sounds like for someone who really felt insecure enough to need control of you, finally got like full control over you by
Yes.
having you entirely dependent, like your life here in Australia now that you'd moved here, dependent on him and being attached to him. So, man,
Yes.
that's was that was that ever scary for you at that point?
So during that time, for me as well, I also had the fear of going back to Zimbabwe. Obviously, I didn't want to go back. You've come here to study and you've just studied for a year. You don't even have the degree. Like for me, it was like, I'm going to go back without nothing. What am I going to even explain to my parents? Like, I didn't want to go back. So for me, I was so grateful to have this opportunity to be able to stay here as well. So for me, I was more grateful. So my life for me, it was also trying to please him, to be the best kind of girlfriend, because I'm so appreciative of the opportunity to stay here and still study and do what I want to do. So it because I was young as well, I met him like when I was 18. So it was like, you're trying to do the right thing and he can't even see that you're also trying to be the best. So for me, at that moment in time, it wasn't necessarily scary, but because actually it became more scary because now we were living together on this spouse visa. That's the condition of the spouse visa. Then I don't know the conditions now, but we had to stay together in the same dwelling place for 2 years. So now I was staying with him, and I think that's when things became even worse, because when we first started dating, I had a miscarriage and I didn't even know. And it comes back again to what you asked me about childhood. There was never talk of sex. It was always marriage. So sex. I had it in school when in science when they are talking of ovulation and puberty, but in the home and in the environment in the community, sex was you don't talk about sex because that's for big people, for adults. So I never knew much about sex, about contraception. So I was naive. That is the right word. You're naive about sex. So eventually, when I got intimate with him, sex education, it was something that I wasn't, up to speed with. So here I am, I'm having intimacy with this guy, and then I got pregnant and I didn't even know. And then I got a bit ill, and then I went to the hospital, and then that's when they checked me and they told me that I had a miscarriage. And I was like, what? I was even, pregnant. You see, I was so naive. I was so ignorant. I never knew anything. So that was the first I ever got pregnant. And then we are now living together. And then I get pregnant for the second time. And fear was a big thing for me. So fear was like, oh, I'm living with a guy that my parents know nothing of. I'm now pregnant. I'm not married. What is my family going to think? I'm the firstborn. I'm meant to be the, role model for everyone. So fear was at the top. So for me, pregnancy, it was nothing, it was nothing. The only thing was fear. What will my parents think? What will my relatives think? So for me, the first thing was like, get rid of it. That was all I could think of during that time. So I told him that I'm getting rid of it. And this guy, he loved kids. He loved kids. Anyone who had a child knew that this guy loved kids. So for him, he was like, no, we can do this. And for me, it was not about the child, the pregnancy. It was just about the fear of my family. What will people think? I was like, no, I can't have this. And I went over the period for termination because I was in this confused, what do I do? But for me, it was like, no, you can't have this. You're a shame to the family. You have to get rid of it. So I told him, look, no, I can't have this child. I'm getting rid of it. And I went to the doctors, because they have to consult you and talk to you. And they told me you're overdue for having a termination, and I was like, I would die, like just get rid of it. For me, the shame and the fear was more than anything else. So eventually I got rid of I terminated the pregnancy. And for me, I was happy. As sad as it people might not believe, but I was actually happy because I felt like, oh, I don't have to go through the shame. No one will know about this, and that's it. It's finished.
Yeah.
For me, it was finished. Um, so it never bothered me. Nothing. It never affected me because I was happy. I've got rid of this, and I move on with my life. And then I got
This
pregnant for
hold on,
the
that's a massive contrast to the woman who put all her time, effort, and energy into pleasing him to now have that fear scare you to the point where you go completely against like his will or his what he wanted of you.
So when I look back now, when I reflect on myself, that girl who is reserved and quiet in childhood is not typically me. It's a pretense. That was a pretense person that I was, a personality, obviously, I give to people to please people. But I think within me, there is this strong woman because yeah, like you said, this man controls me and he can beat me and he can do this, but I can also stand up for myself. And that's why I used to get beaten all the time because even if he says you've done this, as long as I know that I have not done it, I would still stand up. And that's why I would get a beating because I would stand up for myself and I'm like, no, I did not do this. No, I used to say it, like, no, I didn't do this. I'm not cheating. I'm not doing this and I've not done this. So here is a person, she's scared, but she's standing up to this person and still saying, no, I'm not having this pregnancy. And I did not have it. So I think I didn't know who I was. I didn't know that I'm actually strong. I'm actually bold. I actually stand up for myself. It's things that probably I used to do and say, but it wasn't like I never used to take much notice that I'm actually strong enough. I'm bold enough to stand for myself. But it's just things
So
that happened.
um, were you getting beaten before that pregnancy?
Yes, because the first time he ever hit me, it was actually in the street.
Wow.
It was even before we were living together. We had just started dating, a few months into dating, and he was asking me to sleep over because I used to go visit him at his house because I love cleaning. Weird, but I do. I love cleaning. So I used to go on the weekend and visit him and go to his house, clean, wash, iron, and do those typical things that, women do and, cook and do all these things and then stay for the day. And then I'll be like, when it's time, it's evening time, 5, 6 o'clock, I'll be like, look, I've spent the day with you now, I'm going. And so he used to always say when I leave, like, why are you going? Stay with me, stay over. Everyone else is doing it. Or, all the people around you, your friends, they are sleeping over. And I was like, no, marriage first. I'm not sleeping, until marriage. So it was something that we constantly argued over. And then one day, obviously, he really got frustrated and annoyed with me. And we were actually in Habon Street in Glendalough. It was, it wasn't dark that there was, it's a busy road in, Habon Street is a busy road. And there he just smacked me right in the street. And I was shocked because I was like, I can't even remember when my parents last beat me, and this man is smacking me in the street just because I don't want to sleep over. Like, what is that? So it started even before I got pregnant or we
Wow.
started living
So
together.
what makes you obviously hard to see at the time, but looking back now, what do you feel made you stay with someone that only, a short while into dating, you're arguing with, as well as him hitting you?
When I look back now and reflect on it, like we are just into dating and this is happening, it's the learned behavior I saw growing up. So you see people in relationships, and you hear people arguing, you even hear people being beaten, and people talk about it. And that was the thing in the environment where I was. I heard people talking about it, that, oh, so and so was beaten by the husband because she did this, she deserves it. Or, that kind of thing, that it wasn't like this is unacceptable behavior. People shouldn't abuse or be violent to their partners. It was something that just people talked about. It's like a casual talk, like
Wow.
people saying, oh, they were fighting this, oh, she deserves it, or he deserves it. So for me, it was like, it wasn't something that I thought this is the wrong thing that he's doing. It was like, okay, he's angry, and tomorrow will be another day and things will move on. But the contrast was that even though I had that mentality when I came here, especially during that time in 2005, on the adverts, they were advocating for domestic violence and abuse. Even on the billboards, on the bus stops, they had these signs that I remember very well. It used to say that violence against women, Australia says no. So it was like, now what I grew up knowing, it was now like you're split into two cultures. What I grew up hearing and seeing as being like it's normal, like people are doing this, it's okay. And then I'm coming here and they're saying violence against women. Australia says no, if you get violated, call this number and do this. And for me as well, that personality that I have, like, how can I call the police on someone, that you're in a relationship and get them arrested? I was split into two
Okay.
cultures.
So sort of, it's like that was your belief that that's what women were meant for. That's what they deserved, a relationship like that, because that was the norm for you growing up.
Yes.
And so, I guess you put yourself in that position.
Yes.
Even like through dating, you put yourself in that position to receive a relationship that sort of affirmed that belief.
Yes. Yes.
Wow,
And
that's
because
scary.
this person, it is because this person loves you so much one day, and then another day something goes wrong, and then he cries, he asks, he says sorry. So for me as well, I used to see this and I was like, wow, a man, he even cries, he's so sorry. And I would be like, he really means it. And then something happens, and then I'm like, oh, maybe it's because he was drunk, because he used to use that excuse that, oh, I was drunk, and I was like, oh, he was just drunk. But when he's not drunk, sometimes he's loving and he's that. So, accepting it as like, it's okay.
Yeah. So going from dating and he's already being violent towards you, how do you then have the courage to commit to living with him for 2 years by being a part of his, like going on a spouse visa using his citizenship?
So for me,
Did
it
you,
was,
sorry, did you like have this belief that it would stop, or had you just become, I guess, content knowing that that was going to be your life?
for me, I thought it would change, because I was also thinking that, okay, now, I've accepted intimacy, so we won't be fighting. Before, the first time he had, been physical with me, it was because I didn't want to sleep with him. Okay, now we are living together. Maybe he will become more confident in me, knowing that I'm his woman. He will see me all the time. So for me, it was also thinking that he would change. He would be more comfortable knowing, seeing me 24/7. It will be, it will change for the better. But it even became worse. And because, I was, then I could say I was just a casual Christian. I'm a Christian because I say I'm a Christian. I was fasting and praying for this guy to change. And because I was doing that, it wasn't helping me, because even though I was fasting for this guy to change, it wasn't like we are seeking help for him to change, that things are going to get better. It was actually affecting my health, because I was very, very skinny, that he even actually threatened me throughout the relationship that he was going to leave me because people would think that he's abusing me because I'm so skinny. Yes, he used to say things that, and you think, oh, someone loves you because they are so affected, they want you to be healthy, and things like that. But yeah, he would always constantly threaten me and be like, People are going to think that I abuse you. You're so skinny. You need to eat. You need to do this. And you're like, but I'm not in the environment to be able to eat healthy and be, healthy.
Yeah. Um,
So, yes.
so what happened after the termination of that pregnancy, the second one?
So with the second pregnancy, you mean because I had a miscarriage, then I got a
Yeah.
first pregnancy, and then the second pregnancy was I got pregnant, and then because he was working away, I decided to go and visit him, a surprise. So I got my tax return. I had a few $1,000s, and I was like, wow, I'll go, surprise him and visit him. I went to visit him, and Karatha is hot. Like, I had no idea. It was my first time. Karatha is hot. As soon as I stepped off the plane, just the heat, I was like, this is a different place altogether. So I did not like it immediately. I was like, no way, there's no way I like this place. So little did I know that he had asked his boss to offer me a job. For me, I was just coming to visit for
Yeah.
a few days and go back. I had a full-time job, but he had already asked his boss to give me a job, so he wanted me to stay there. And I was like, no, I have a full-time job and I just came to visit you for a few days and I'm going back to Perth. Um, but he wasn't having it. He's like, why do you want, I'm here, let's stay together. And I was like, no, it's hot. I don't like this place. You work. So I refused. And so I had just bought a one-way ticket to Carafa, and then I said I would buy the other one when I'm coming back. So not because I was going to stay there forever. No, it was just for a few days and then come back. So we went to the shops, and I was going to tell him as well during this visit that, I've found out I'm pregnant again. So we go to the shops, and I see that this guy really wants me to stay. That is, even I actually worked the first day I got there, because the boss, he said, just try it and see. And because he was working in a club, I did not like it whatsoever. The noise, the smell of alcohol, the smell of cigarettes. And when you're working in a club, you're on the bar, and all these guys are chatting with you. For me, I know that chatting to a man will cause chaos.
Yeah.
And you have these people who are chatting with you, and you're like, he's watching me, and what will go. So for me, after that first day, I just wanted to prove to him that, look, no, it's not for me. So I said no, and obviously he wasn't happy. So the following day we go to the shops. I decide to buy my ticket for the following day to come back to Perth, because I was like, I'm not staying here being forced to do things I don't want to do.
Yep.
So I bought a ticket to come back to Perth. And he never said anything. We went inside the news agency. I bought it. He never said anything. We were laughing. Everything was okay. As soon as we got home, we sit on the couch, and then he's like, okay, now that you've got a few $1,000s from the tax, you think you can do whatever you want. You think you can just buy tickets whenever you want to show off your money. And I was like, it's just a tax return money. It's not even like it's a lot of thousands. It's nothing. It wasn't like a lot of money. And I said, I'm not even showing off. There's nothing to show off. And from then, this day he beat me like a dog. It was just horrible. And I think for me personally, before I was trying to just forgive him and move on. But this day, because he beat me on this couch, he was just beating me, and he loved to beat my face for some reason, and my head. So I was covering, my face, and the smacks and the punches are just coming. So I ran to the toilet because I wanted to call the police. So I ran to the toilet, and he put his feet on the door, so I couldn't lock the door in the toilet. So I just put my head on the toilet seat and just covered my head, and he kept hitting me and saying all these things like, you want to show off, you're using me for my visa, I know this, and carrying on. So I actually never told him I was pregnant, and that is the first time ever I actually realized I hated him. I realized that this is not love. I actually hate this guy, that if I could get a gun, if I could get something to do something to him, I would, if I had that opportunity during that time, because I realized that I hate this man to the core for whatever he's doing to me. And I decided on my own, I came to Perth. So for him, if he's read the book, I don't know, he would know that I actually had a second pregnancy, because I never told nobody. People just knew through the
Wow.
book. Yeah, I just went to the hospital again, got the termination, and never said a word.
Wow. So he's lucky that he didn't actually terminate it himself through
No,
through the abuse.
no, no. And when I came, yeah, that pregnancy coming back to Perth, and then I think it was coming to Christmas Day. He came back to Perth, and then I got a call from a friend in the UK. So I had a friend in the UK. He was a guy, married.
So
Um,
after this, you stayed with him, even though you
yes,
got to the point where you realized you didn't actually love him, you hated him.
yes, and I didn't know what to do. So I didn't know. I was trying to figure out, so what do I do? If I leave him, then I'm going to lose the visa. I
Yep.
also feared losing the visa as well. At the same time, I don't want, to be with this person because I now hate him. So I was also torn in between. It was fear upon, now I'm like, okay, if I leave him, I'm going to lose the spouse visa, and then I have to go back to Zimbabwe, because I did not know what would happen for me. It was just the thought of, okay, if I say I'm leaving, then I have to go back.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
didn't want to go back as well. When he came back after that, and I never said anything about the pregnancy, never said anything, he came back, and then I get this call from a friend in the UK, and the guy did not even actually call on the mobile. He called on the landline,
Wow.
and I'm chatting with this guy, because for me, I suppose that's the naive part of me as well then, because I would give the people who I thought were my friends the landline, think I don't know what I was thinking, because this guy as well, he's like this. This guy, I'm chatting with him, laughing. As soon as I get off the phone, a smack just comes flying over. I'm like, why? How can you have your boyfriends calling and you are chit chatting in front of me? And it never stopped. And I'm like, how would I have a boyfriend call on the landline, and that argument, it grew. The fight went even bigger. How I knew that you were using me for my visa. I knew you wanted to bring your boyfriends here once you get, the permanent residence. You've been using me, and it just carried on. And that day, he constantly came and he would beat me, and I was so tired. Like, I had started having migraines, so I was not well. And he kept on coming. Every now and then he would say some things, beat me, and then he would lock the door and go out. So I couldn't actually leave
Wow.
the house. And so I thought to myself, let me jump from the balcony and go out and find the police and call the police. But I couldn't get off the balcony because the door was locked and he had taken the keys. And then I go upstairs and I think, okay, let me jump from the bathroom. And I look and I'm like, we are on the second,
Yep.
second part of the apartments. If I fall on the pavement, I'm going to die. So initially in me, it wasn't that I want to literally, I want to kill myself. It was trying to find a way to get out of this situation and not harm myself. But I was now putting myself in danger because I just needed a way out. But I realized that if I jump from the bathroom, I'm going to die. I knew it because I could see it's far from downstairs. So I decided to take some tablets because the migraines that I used to get, honestly, I used to want to chop my head off. That's how they used to torment me. And
And
I
they're
had
not
got
helped by someone hitting you in the head either.
no, and probably it came from that because that's where he used to hit me so much. So I couldn't. I was so tired that day. I just wanted out. I just wanted a rest. So I ended up overdosing. And the time that he came back again, probably to hit me again, he found me, I was down. And then he took me to the hospital. And then I stayed overnight. Social workers came to talk to me and they asked me, are you being, what is going on? They tried as social workers do. I did not say anything. They're like, are you safe? I didn't. I said, everything's good because he was there. He stayed, and I said, no, nothing. I just kept everything hidden. And then after that, we left. As soon as we left the hospital, we went straight to my pastor's place. And my pastors, that family, I knew them through him.
Okay.
So everyone pretty much I knew them through him because I was so quiet. I never made friends, I suppose. So I met them through him. So he drove me straight to their house and he said, she's now she's killing herself. She wants me to have the bad name so people think I'm the one who, killed her and all this. What will her family think? And saying all these things. And I think for the first time, that's when they actually believed me because I was telling them, but probably they never, because this guy was a lovely guy. He smiled, laughed, loved everyone, loved children. So probably even when I was telling people, they actually never believed it because he was outgoing and they're just like, probably she just wants a visa.
Well, so you were actually open to talking about this with people. So it wasn't
Yes.
something you just bottled up.
No, that is the difference with me, that this is something I never actually bottled up. I think the whole church where I was going that time, everyone knew what I was going through because after that incident, he actually came, after that incident happened, um, I stayed, I think I went with him, but then something happened in between. And then I went to stay with my pastors because I stayed with them more than I think I stayed with him. Every time something happened, I would leave for a few weeks and then come back. It was
Wow.
like, it went on. It was like that. So he realized, I think that time I stayed for more than I had ever stayed. So he thought, oh, definitely she's not coming back again. So he, came this weekend. We were having a barbecue. The whole church was having a barbecue at the pastor's house. So everyone was there. So many people were there. And then he came to talk to me at such a gathering, and I did not. My pastors were like, "You stay in here. Don't go out. Just let it be." So I stayed inside the house, and he started calling me. This guy used to call. My phone used to ring so much that even people who I worked with at the company I was working, they used to actually tell me that when they were sleeping at night, Shakira's Hips Don't Lie used to ring in their heads. So you can imagine that my workmates, my ringtone was actually tormenting them. So imagine myself, how I
Yeah.
was. And I couldn't even though I was working, how they say at work, put your phone on silent. I couldn't put mine on silent because if I don't answer, I was in trouble. Even though he knew I'm at work, he knows during this time I'm at work, but he still constantly called. So he's calling. I'm now at this barbecue. He's calling and I'm not picking up. So as soon as I don't pick up, message. He was a messenger. He would message.
Yep.
Messages were flying, and he realized I'm not coming outside. He went home, took all my clothes, brought them and put them on the verge outside of the pastor's house. He dropped my clothes there on the verge on the road. He went back so for someone who is angry, for the first trip, you might think, oh, someone overreacted. He went home again, took another, because I've got so much clothes. He took another batch of clothes, brought them, dumped them on the veg, went back for the third trip and brought all my clothes and shoes and undies, not in a bag. He just picked everything and dumped them outside. And then he put, in the kitchen, where we put our spoons and forks and knives,
Yep.
the first tray, he brought that tray and put it on top and said for the past few years, that is what she has worked for.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So I want to go back to that point where you're now looking for a way out of that room, out of your house. And then like all you wanted was to get out so you could contact the police for safety. How did it change from wanting to contact the police for safety to now being in the hospital with social workers and like changing your mind completely?
So from day one, actually, not the first time that he hit me in Harbon Street on the road, I didn't call the police because I was confused. I think I was in shock more. But after that, any other day that he hit me, I actually used to call the police.
Oh wow.
So even when we were dating and even when I moved in with him, every time he ever hit me, I would call the police because for me, that was, that's, I thought they would come and help me and rescue me. But the thing was that every time I called the police, because your mobile is the one that you have closer with you, I would call the police, dial 000 and run. And by the time I haven't even said a few words, he would grab the phone and he would throw it in the wall. And if I have an opportunity where I can get the landline, I would try and call again with the landline and he would break them. And then if I can get out of the house quick enough, I would run away. And because the police, they would come so many times and I had already run. So the thing that I knew was call and run, and escape. So probably the time the police came, I'd already run away. So it happened throughout the whole relationship. I called the police so many times, but every time I rang them, I would run away. So I never got that opportunity to actually say what I was ringing for.
Okay. Um, so how did that change then when you're in this hospital and you finally have people who are going to listen to you? How did it change from seeking help to now like pushing it away? Just because I feel like this is probably one of those pivotal moments for any woman who finds himself in that position. Like you can literally speak to someone and get help and seek like shelter or safety.
Mm-hmm. For me, it was the fear of having him arrested. So even though I was calling the police to help me because it was just an instinct thing that, I'm in danger, come and help me. But for me, probably that's why I ran and never stayed close enough to be able to see them because I was scared that he would be arrested. And then if he is arrested and put in jail, it will be, you see, it's true. She wanted the visa. So I think I had so much going on within me that I know what this guy is doing is wrong, but I'm afraid of getting him arrested and put in prison. And then people would think I'm the bad person and I just wanted the visa. So I was that pleasing person, I was obviously trying to
Wow.
please.
So you're so scared of proving him right that you put yourself
Mm,
in harm's way.
yes.
That's sad.
Yeah, that is really sad. Really.
So when when does it get to a point where you finally acknowledge your self worth and decide, okay, like I'm worth I'm worth someone who actually loves me and who treats me well, not someone who treats me like this.
So after I came from the hospital, obviously this was a big thing. I could have lost my life.
Hmm.
I was, I survived. So many women die. So after I get out of the hospital, um, there's an white Kenyan lady who I grew to know, and I was cleaning for this lady. And after I came from the hospital, and then I told her what had happened, she said to me, "Tinashe, this is Australia. This is not Zimbabwe. This is unacceptable behavior. A man is not allowed to take you this far. The way I'm seeing these things going, you are actually now going to die. You need to leave this guy." So I went to do my normal cleaning that day, but she was not having me clean. She literally drove me to an immigration lawyer in Subiaco
Wow.
and said, "This girl is going through this, and I think she's going to die very soon if she doesn't leave. Can you help her in some way? I don't know, but there has to be a way." And that's when the immigration lawyer, he told me that the Australian, government, they know that there are people like this who, they sponsor people on a visa. They do it because they want to do it, but in the process, they abuse, their right or what they have done. And so many women go through this, even men go through this. They are sponsored, and then someone who has sponsored them abuse them, and it's unacceptable. But you need to have the evidence because this is, a process of how it works. If you have no evidence, how are you going to be able to prove, to the police or the immigration that you're going through this if you can't even prove you are in such a relationship. So for me, I wrote down the notes, what he was telling me, and I put them under the mattress because I was like, I'm the one who makes the bed every day. So I put these notes under the mattress so he wouldn't see. And believe it or not, I don't know how, but one day that week, he went under the mattress and found all these notes. And he told, my pastors that, look, she's going to the immigration lawyer. She wants, to get me in trouble. She's got hidden agendas and all these things. But for me, that was the first time ever going to speak to this lawyer that I realized that there is a way out. I realized that I don't need to stay in this relationship because of this guy. I mean, I'm going through all these things and I have been hiding, the police, I should stay and tell them what's going on because I keep running away. They don't even know why I'm calling them. So if I don't have this evidence, then I have nothing to prove that I'm going through all these things. So for me as well, and I said, I've got all the medical records, when I've been to hospital. So, I know there's a way out. They will believe me. Other people may not believe me, but for me, that was that point where I realized that I can actually get out. But it was also a point of, I'm not just going to leave because I had tried so many times. I would go and live with people and come back. So I knew I had to have a plan on living.
Wow. So, did I get this right? That you went to the immigration lawyer and then you started taking notes afterwards?
Yes.
Wow. So you actually put yourself back in that position to, I guess, accumulate enough evidence.
Yes, so because I knew that I had enough evidence, like I knew with the police, I called police so many times. I knew they had all the records of me calling them, and they would hear me scream sometimes that, I'm calling. But I knew that, if I am going to go to the immigration and tell them that this is happening to me, I need to have that evidence with me. So if I don't have it, then I have no case anyway to answer. So for me, it wasn't necessarily me writing down everything that was happening, but it was me checking myself. Okay, what do I have, for me to be able to prove to the immigration that I'm being abused and in an abusive relationship. Okay, I'm calling the police. I've got these medical records. And I also thought to myself, the people that have been around me, the church, surely people will be able to stand up for me and say, we know that this person has been going through this. So it was just, what the immigration lawyer said to me. And I have all these notes of things that I need to do. And if I'm going to go to the immigration and tell them I want to terminate this relationship, at least I know what to take to the immigration.
But in terms of being at that point where you're finally like talking to the lawyer and you're like, I have a way out, yet still going back to live with him.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a predicament, like, because it's still, was that for you? You still didn't value yourself enough to not go back?
No, for me at this point in time, it was finding the right moment to leave. Okay. So it was, basically, okay, I know I can leave because I knew I could leave. So how am I going to do this safely? So it was more so during that time to the time I left, living safely and not putting myself in danger because I knew that he would find me anyway. So it was more so like, okay, I'm going to live. So where am I going to live? Because I don't want to live with people that he knows because he will come to their homes. So what am I going to do? So it was now pretty much putting myself in a place where preparation of leaving him, but I knew that I was leaving.
So was that the first time within that relationship you felt like you had a sense of power or control over what happened to you?
Yeah, yes, I did because it was me planning. So even though I had people helping me, my pastors, obviously, my friend, and now this immigration lawyer has told me all these things. I knew I had people who would help me and they were telling me, what to do and how to do it safely. So I really felt in control of what I was doing. And even for the whole period of the relationship, I never stopped working, regardless of whatever happened to me. I would still go to work every single day. So it wasn't like I'm waiting to receive money or funds from him, but I was a hard worker already. So I worked. So I knew that, if I, continue onto this path, I will, I can pay a shared house. I can go live somewhere, not necessarily a shelter. So that's what I did. I didn't live in a shelter. I actually went to a shared house and just booked just one rented one room. And, and that was the process that I took.
Wow, that's powerful. And one point I want to touch on from that story before we move on is that the fact that you were open to talking about it with people, you didn't actually hide it or repress it at all. So, it finally got to that point where you spoke to the right person, with
Yes.
the lady that you cleaned with,
Mm.
and then she finally, I guess, took action and connected you to the help that you needed. So that never would have happened unless you would have been open to speaking about it, which is important for anyone going through something like this.
Absolutely. And, one thing I just want, I want that comes out of that as well is, we have cultures, like I said, growing up where it's accepted that, these things happen, or that's marriage, or that's a relationship. People go through these things, but violence and abuse should never be accepted. People, should never tolerate such kind of behavior. You can't just accept that this person does this, because you can see, like this year, we've lost so many lives to abuse, violence and abuse. And, it's this kind of, advice that people hear that, this is what relationship is. This is what, just be strong. Things will work out. But there are some people who are actually violent, that they can kill. And so many people have died premature. The young kids who have been killed, those kids we see with domestic violence and all that, it's just innocent lives dying because of, probably the same thing, what people have grown up knowing and hearing, that, they are so afraid to take that step and seek the help that they need, and they've died prematurely. So for me, that was gave me confidence. And actually, I went to Zimbabwe. So during that transition, I went to Zimbabwe for the first time after 3 years coming here. I was given advice to just go home, clear my head, and, come back and see what I wanted to do. So I took that literally, and I booked my ticket, worked hard, and I went to Zimbabwe. I actually went with him. I
Wow.
know. He decided he was also going, but he didn't go to Zimbabwe because he couldn't go for some reasons. He stayed in South Africa, but I went to Zimbabwe. But it was also something that happened when I went to Zimbabwe that gave me as well that the confidence that I had of planning to leave, that actually gave me that power to be like, okay, you can do this. When I went, I wanted to be able to, the same way I've opened up to everyone here who was around me, I wanted to open up to everyone as well, my family, everyone in Zimbabwe, of what I had been going through, that I'm living with this guy, and because of these reasons, and why I lost my visa, because I also lost my visa in a very nasty way. Someone did something and I ended up losing my student visa. So I wanted to open up all these things to, family and friends, and to just open up. But I was not given that opportunity. I was shut down.
Wow.
Before I even said anything. It was just like, we don't want to know. Go and sort yourself out. That was it, basically. So being shut out by people who you're close to, it really brought that sense to me that unless if I do something, no matter how much you might expect your family, your parents, whoever, who be it people who are taking care of you, it doesn't matter. They might have their own perceptions, but unless if you take, care of yourself, no one else will. So being shut down, because for me, actually, I forgave him so easily, this guy, after I left, than the person who made my visa to be terminated. It took me until 2014 because I was so angry. I couldn't believe the betrayal. So that really affected me as well, but not being given that opportunity to open up all these things and just be shut like that. I was like, okay, so basically I'm on my own. So it doesn't matter whatever decision I make, I come first. So that was the one of the biggest thing that even when I came here, I didn't care whether I lost the visa, the spouse visa, even if they told me to go back to Zimbabwe, I didn't care because I was like, I come first, whatever happens, it's all about me. So yes, that
Wow,
was
that's
another
powerful,
big thing.
and that's cool that you um, took that perspective, because a lot of people in that position, even with stuff like anxiety or depression or suicidal tendencies, if they were to be shut down like that by the people that they love and care about most, they'd
Yes.
just like submit and recede into that place where it's like, okay, I deserve this. This is my life.
Yes, and there's no way out. Like that's the end. But for me, being shut out like that wasn't like, okay, that's the end. For me, it was like, it happened, and I didn't even know, because it wasn't like I was reflecting and
Yeah.
meditating on these things. These things were just happening. But then for me, it was like, no matter what, I come first. No matter how much I might try to sit with my family or anyone around me and try to get them to understand what I'm going through, sometimes they will never understand. But because I understand myself, so okay, do you? Yeah, it was like, do you, what makes you happy?
Yes. Okay, I've got about 10 minutes left before I have to move on to the next one, buddy. So we're going to cover recovery now.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke a little bit beforehand. So we've already spoken about asking for help, but you also said that you went to professional help, specifically a counsellor. Did you want to talk to us about what happened within those sessions and like what you got out of it, and any advice you have for anyone?
So the funny thing is that the woman I was cleaning for, she started counseling. She started counseling. So even though I would go for cleaning every other, weekend day, and I was cleaning, I was, because I'm an open person, I was, she was telling me things, and I think that's what kept me going, because we would sit down, we would talk about what I'm going through, and she would advise me, and on what is best for me, and even the steps she took to say, okay, probably she doesn't know this part, let me take it to an immigration lawyer. So it wasn't like really, she's into, she practices somewhere, but it was me speaking to her, and her speaking obviously positive things and helping me do the right things, and my pastors as well. I don't know, but every time I called her, especially the wife, every time I called her when I was going through something, I would always leave the phone laughing and smiling, even though I've called her crying and I'm going through all these things. But honestly, every time I left, I was laughing, and she would just speak. She would encourage me. She would always tell me things. For me, I'm seeing this, because you are put in this corner. All you can see is that. But she would tell me something else, and then I would live there in a positive mindset. And I think that's what actually kept me going, because I could have given up a long time ago. So for me, I didn't go exactly to counseling where they practice, but I had people who have done counseling. She is with me every other week and speaking to me, and I have my pastors, because every time I left this guy, if something happened, I would go and live with them. I'm so grateful that they even allowed me, because most people, they end up in shelters. They have nowhere else to go. But for me, they would open their doors for me, and I would live there for as long until, he would come again and take me. And then it was just like a yo-yo going up and down. So speaking, to them, they encourage me in my faith as well. And I think for the recovery as well, I would like to mention that even though I had my pastors with me, but actually I couldn't say that I was a Christian. I was just going, because I grew up in a Christian home. So you're just going to church for the sake of going. But after I left this guy, I had nightmares. So after I had left him, that's when all the anger, everything that happened, because now he's not there, it's now these things coming back. I was angry. I can tell you I was angry. I wanted to kill him because I then realized all the things that he had put me through, and I was still waiting for an outcome for the immigration. And I decided, I watched the movie by Jennifer Lopez. I don't know if you've watched it. It's called Enough, where she was
Yeah.
abused. I watched that so many times and it encouraged me, and I wanted to revenge. So I actually started going for taekwondo. Um,
Yeah.
I did. I started going for taekwondo because I wanted to go and provoke him. I knew that, if I do something like this, I can provoke him. And once I provoke him, he will start to hit me and thinking I can't fight back. And then I would use my skills. And because I knew I had worked hard for these 3 years, how can someone bring a plate of spoons and give me? That's an insult. So I wanted to go and burn everything inside the house. I was so angry. So I went specifically for taekwondo for revenge. And it was in this process of going for taekwondo, I actually realized all this anger that I had, all, the frustrations, I was actually getting it out of my system. I didn't even know, because for me, the agenda in my head, you're going to learn to fight and do this. But doing that, I didn't realize that I was actually letting off all this anger and steam that is within me. And obviously I was still going to church and, praying and hearing, encouraging messages about forgiveness and all that. It also, really encouraged me, on the right path, that, eventually, instead of me wanting revenge, I went on the opposite path of, okay, forgive this guy and move on with your life, and, you'll be in the right place. But it was a long process, because I was having nightmares of men, any man I would meet, be it at work, be it even my pastor and his sons. Every night now I was dreaming of all these men coming to abuse me and wanting to rape me. So it was really hard, that you want to forgive this person, but the things that you go through every day, the dreams and the nightmares, they are because of this person, and you still want to,
So
you still.
how do you forgive someone like that? For someone in this who's currently in that position where they've transitioned out of the relationship, but they have all this hatred, all this anger towards someone who's hurt them. How did you go about that process? If you can make it brief, because we don't have much time.
Okay. Okay. So for me, basically, what I would say is that it was about understanding that forgiveness is not about the other person. Forgiveness is about you.
Yeah.
Because even if you say, I forgive you for what you have done, I'm freeing myself, basically, because I'm the one, who is saying sorry. So for me, I'm the one who actually wrote him a letter and said, I'm sorry if I ever did anything wrong that made you to do these things to me. That's what I did. I said, I am sorry, and I forgive you for all the things that you did for me. So he has never, face to face, he has never said the same thing to me. He has never apologized to me. But if I had not done that myself, I would be still 10 years later now waiting for him to say sorry. But because I did it, 10 years, I've been free. So forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about you freeing yourself and moving on. But if you are waiting for that person to come and say sorry, you die still waiting and still be in bitterness.
Yeah, and that's really powerful, because I truly believe no matter how someone has hurt you, if you can forgive them, then you take your power back, because by hating them for something that they've done to you, you're constantly in that victim
Yes.
mentality or mindset, and you can never prosper. You can never be the hero of your own story
No,
if you're
no,
always playing the victim.
no, no, you can never. Yes. So that's probably, yeah, for me, that was it. That, yeah, forgiving him. And honestly, as soon as I forgave him, I actually told him that, if we're one day, we can have a coffee, we can have lunch, but, it has nothing to do with the relationship. But I'm okay, because I took back that power, that I am in control of my life. He's not the one who is controlling me. But obviously, it has never
Yeah.
happened that I have sat with him and all that. But yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify on that victim part. Yes, when you do get hurt, you are a victim in that moment, but whether you remain a victim is up to you.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely it is up to you. For me, what I live by is as long as I'm still alive, I still have that opportunity to live my best life.
that is amazing. That is so good. We're gonna snip that for Instagram. What's the time? Yeah. Okay. Couple quick questions.
Yes.
Knowing everything that you've been through, which is pretty damn horrific, what would you say the quality of your life is like now?
From being so closed up, I am the most open person. As you can see, I can just let everything out from my virginity and everything. There is nothing, I have no shame whatsoever. I live a life of, I'm true to myself. I'm very authentic. What you see now is what you will see when you come for a cup of tea, is what you will see whether I'm in a church, wherever I'm in the workplace, at work. I am just the same person. So I am very open and I have no anger or any hatred within me. I love anyone who is positive. I know you can't love everyone, but anyone who is positive and we are on the same page with me, I will love you. I will look out for you. I will send you messages like, I'm so free to love. I'm married now. My husband, he allows me to speak to any man, not any man today can say to me, Tinashe, I've heard your story, I've read your book, I want to have a coffee with you, I want to talk to you. My husband allows me to meet any man because he knows who I am, and that's, the life I live. It's a life of freedom. I am very free,
That is so
very
cool.
free.
What are you most grateful for right now?
What I'm grateful for right now, I am so grateful for all the people I meet. I can't tell you enough. Like every person I meet, be it in the workplace, be it anywhere I go and I meet new people, I'm just grateful for the love and I don't limit myself. So anyone who is open, I'm also open. So I'm just grateful for the people that I'm meeting in my life at this moment. They just top up on top of what I already have.
That's amazing. Um, to wrap up, buddy, I want to acknowledge you for the fact that you're coming on, doing this, sharing your story, for writing your book as well, knowing how you were shut out by your culture and your family back home, wanting to express yourself when you went back there, but most of all for taking what you've been through and turning that pain to power.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. I'm grateful to even be alive to do it
Yes,
because there are so many people who have died with their stories and now we just remember the death, but we don't, have that opportunity to be able to share and be open and raise awareness, on violence and abuse.
that's amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. I hope you have a good day.
Thank you for having me. You too. Have a good day.
Take care. See ya.
All right. Bye.